Hello, everybody. Good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, and Disembodied Hands Quindy. Justin and John are absentee helpers, and Kiki, the star, the real star of the show. Right, Kiki? Good girl. Good girl. You know the spiel. You know the spiel. Yay. Good girl. She likes getting up here for scritches in the morning. Yeah, she likes getting up here for scritches. Are you a good girl? More scritches? So I'm late because I had to drop my car off for repairs, and that is totally something that never happens. So when I came home, she fell over. She was so excited she couldn't decide whether to jump up or fall over. So she did both several times. Hello, face. How are you? Yeah, showing everybody your pretty face. Is it true? Good kisses. Yeah. All right, you don't get to drink my tea. Good girl. All right, take your chew. Take your bully. Oh, you left it here. Here. You don't want to leave this. There you go. Good girl. Who's my good girl? Hi, everybody. Oof. Yeah, what a morning. Oh, they're so slow at our Honda dealer. Oh, my God. Oof. And then, of course, they don't know. They don't have one of the parts, and then they have to look for, it's on back order. And even though I hate it because you make this appointment, and when they make the appointment for you, nobody checks anything. So you show up, and then they're like, oh, yeah, we don't have those. Yeah, 41 months for Crowley. And I saw Clavicus up there, too. Hold on, let me back up. There we go. 37 months for Clavicus. Wow, you people. Long time. Long time. Yeah, you did. You did miss the doggo. Sorry, Pedrick. Yeah, they're just so slow to check you in, and then they're just like, oh, we know this. And the guy I deal with, the floor manager guy, is cool. He knows. He's actually looking for an aftermarket part for me, because I'm fine with that, which is nice. So let's hope they can get that, because, yeah. And this is why I made the appointment for early in the week instead of late in the week when we have to drive to Yosemite, because I wanted this done, and I knew that it was going to take more than one day. So, yeah. So no vehicle for a couple days, I think. And hopefully they'll be able to find the one more part. But yeah, it's a pain. So yeah, I had hoped to be back and on only 15 minutes late, but that was not to be. Yeah, and I forgot to warn you guys on the stream yesterday about this whole thing. All right, so we're doing our dedication, our drill tribute to Cathy. Let us get out our cyan, magenta, and yellow. So that's what we're mixing everything from. I've got cracks in my struts, in the bar, in the two front supports. So essentially my suspension, Pendrake. And since we're about to be going into bumpy mountain territory, bumpy side road mountain territory, I did not want to wait on the repair. So we'd have to get it done by July anyway, because then we're driving all the way to Seattle. I'm doing a lot of very long road trips this year. So pretty much anything I can get fixed, I'm going to get fixed this year. It's a 2008. I mean, the car is getting up there, guys. 15 years old. We picked up the Honda the day we picked up Kiri from the airport. All right, let's get these grays going. So if you remember, we get gray using red, yellow, and blue by crooked again. I'm always so crooked. There I am. By mixing an orange and then adding blue to it. Or conversely, you could mix a green and then add red to it. But So I'm going to say 1, 2. Then I'm going to say 1 yellow. And I'm going to throw 2 blues into that. Yes, we flew actually all of our first 3 dogs. Because we got Leo and Kiri from the breed founder, and she was in upstate New York. So that was definitely a puppy was flying to you situation. And then Thorn was from, I think, Tennessee. Southeast. So again, more flying puppies. To be fair, none of them had any issues. Like, they didn't seem to really be impacted by it. It's a lot faster than a 3.5-day road trip like I did with Kiki. But it was too hot to fly Kiki. So, and Bridget's not a fan of flying anyway. Hey, Kroniko. But yeah, so I never had any problems flying a puppy. And I did fly my own puppies. Kiri's puppies. A couple of them flew to their new homes. All right, so the blue overwhelmed. Blue is a high dispersion rate, and so it totally overwhelmed those other two colors. It is a little bit greenish, though. So what we're going to do is we're going to add more magenta. See how that impacts it. Magenta is very weak, so you want to add quite a bit of it. Hey, green users. So now I've got kind of a purple. So how do we neutralize purple? We add yellow. So essentially when you're mixing and you're trying to get to a neutral, you just have to keep reaching for the complementary color. So having gotten a little bit purplish, we now throw in our yellow. And now we're getting to kind of now we've got a gray. We've neutralized it enough. That's kind of a bluish gray, which is what I want. So I'm going to actually transfer some of this over, and drop a drop of pure white in it, which is going to tell us what color it really is. But yeah, so with the road trip this Friday, had to get the car into the shop, and they just took their sweet time getting us processed and out of there. David was late too. I made David miss a meeting, which always makes me feel sad. But I didn't, we didn't want to blow money on an Uber to get back home. So, all right. So we've got a very, very bluish gray, but I think it'll work. Gonna drop a couple more drops of white over here and make a very light version of it. Yeah, so I'm carless for a couple of days. But that's fine. David will probably leave me his car tomorrow. So yeah, we got just a little bit of a blue shift here, but we kind of had a blue shift in our original blue anyway. So we just have to kind of like figure out if that's going to work. So what I'll do is I'll take a dab of this and just kind of put it alongside my previous blue or my previous gray. Yeah, you could mix some nice neutrals. I mean, that's why I did that PDF on mixing grays this month. And the $10 PDF for this month for those who are on my Patreon might be slightly delayed. I don't know if I'm going to have time to finish it before we go on the trip. I'm working on it. It's the mixing leather colors one. So if not, it'll get done right when I get back. I was early so far this month, so I knew that the trips were gonna interfere. Alrighty, so I'm gonna take a little bit of this gray, the medium gray that I mixed up, and I'm just gonna put it a little bit on the inside of her leg here and see how different it is. I can see that it is bluer. Letting it dry though. Yeah, it's like blue, but it's just a tiny, tiny bit blue. And I don't really want to slide it too far at the back the other way. Yeah, it's just, I think I've just got to work on the swatches and everything. I'm looking at, the thing is I have to also pack the car up for a dog road trip, right? So that's the big thing. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to add just a little bit of orange, but I'm going to hand mix my orange. So I do want a little bit of yellow and then just a tiny tad of red. I'm going to put that little bit of yellow and grab my red and mix that in. I just need a tiny bit of neutralization, and so just that tiny bit shifts my gray more toward neutral. So now you can see that that's now a less blue-gray. I can tap some of that over into this now. To neutralize that a little bit more. But yeah, with the trips at the end of the month, that's why I wanted to get off to an early start on the rest of the Patreon. There we go. I don't mind if my highlight color is just a little blue. That looks good. All right. A little bit of drop of water in both of those. Yeah, I was going to be late today, Twisted Gnome. I had to drop my car off for repairs. And I knew it was going to... They were very, very pokey. Very, very pokey. Super pokey. All right, there we go. So sometimes, honestly, even though it seems like a little tiny bit, like I put in there, the tiny dab of yellow and magenta that I put in there shouldn't shift it. It shifted it just enough. When you've got a color that's really, really close, don't work in full drops. Just grab a little bit. And remember, I'm gone Friday, everybody. Driving down to the park. And that's the other thing. I have to get the car. I got to get all my stuff done. Because of my health stuff, it tends to be a bit of a... It's always a bit of an odyssey when you're taking your dog with you on a trip. Anyway, you got to pack a whole bunch of dog stuff. But I also have to worry about my diet stuff and stuff like that. And so I always make some healthy muffins before I go on one of these trips. Things like that just suck up all the time. Yep, mechanics shenanigans, exactly. So slow. All right, I'm going to leave that at a 2-to-1 for that white and see how it goes. Then we will continue with some of our stuff. Yeah, I make flaxseed muffins because they're low carb. Flaxseed with a little bit of almond flour to enhance the flavor. I usually do an everything muffin so I don't have to add too much sweetener to it. So it's like flaxseed with some almond flour and then an egg and salt and some cinnamon or everything seasoning. If it's a regular muffin, I just do cinnamon. And I think just a little bit of like almond extract or other flavoring, depending on the flavor of the muffin I'm doing. I'll do either almond or vanilla. And then a little tiny bit of like coconut oil usually. Can use olive oil. In my chocolate muffins, I use olive oil for the fat. But yeah, it's a low carb muffin. It's got like almost no carbs in it. If you use like erythritol, you can get pretty much almost zero carb muffin. Still tasty. And you can microwave it, but I always do it in the regular oven because I think I get a better result. All right. Kind of smoothing out the shoulder pad a little bit here with my lighter color. But yeah, they're great road food, the muffins, and they really, like, if I have to get on the road early and I know there's really not any place to get breakfast near where I am, the muffin will do it for me, especially if I also have a hard-boiled egg with me. So I usually bring both hard-boiled eggs and the muffins on all of my trips. But it's just extra prep, right? Making sure you've got all that stuff and then making it the day before means that the day before a trip, I typically don't get a lot of work done. Alrighty, so we've got a lot of stuff on this arm. Oh, are you low carb resin? Yeah, I can. I need to look it up again anyway because I need to make it, so. The great thing about flax seeds is that they're essentially zero carb. They're all fiber and fat. And so for keto, they're very, very good way to actually have a muffin while you're on keto. When you grind them up, I use just a spice grinder. You grind them up real fine and they pretty much turn into flour. And then, like I said, if you're not into the flavor of flax seeds, which some people aren't, adding just a couple of tablespoons of almond flour makes you a slightly bigger batch. And then I usually will bake four muffins out of one of these batches. And you can do all different flavors. I've done chocolate ones. I've done apple, cinnamon ones. I've done just regular cinnamon. I've done Indian spice thandai flavored ones, which are really cool because they already have nuts in them. So that you get a pistachio, pepper, rose, fennel kind of flavor, which is really cool. One of my favorites. And I've done lemon ones. Although the lemon I find doesn't go as well. Oh, and pumpkin spice. I've done pumpkin. You can take the base recipe and turn it into anything you want. You just have to remember when you're adding. Yeah, I can put it in there. I don't know. I've never tried to bake them in the air fryer, but I mean, it should work. They bake in a regular oven for about a 25-minute. If you do a bigger batch, or you're doing if you're adding more sugar or sweetener, it takes a little longer. So like when I do the chocolate muffin, which I don't do very often anymore. But the chocolate one takes extra sugar or sweetener, and depending on if you're low or no carb. And it tends to need a longer bake, like more like 28 minutes. But yeah, I mean, you can do baked goods in the air fryer. I've heard that the air fryer is really good at it. I just haven't tried it. So I'm just doing, I want to do a sharp highlight right down this arm. But yeah, for people like I do like muffins, and so when I was keto, I loved these muffins because it made me feel like I was eating normal food, like I was having carbs, but I wasn't. And now they're, like I said, they're great road food because I just make like 4 or 8 of them and toss them into cooler. And just have one if it's an emergency food situation. There was at least one night when I was bringing Kiki home, that 3.5-day road trip, where I was exhausted because baby puppy was having issues, right? She had car sickness that first day, and then yeah, so I was like totally blasted on sleep, at least for 2 of those days, and I would get into our hotel and I just would not have the energy to even stop at a place for food. And so those muffins and the hard-boiled eggs made me got me through it, essentially. Oh, I don't use the preset buttons. I just look up a recipe, usually Pendrake. I'm suspicious of presets because you never know like what, as far as the weight of the item or the size of the item, right? But maybe bake makes the air circulate differently. I have no idea. I thought those were just really time settings, and I would rather control the time setting myself more precisely. All right, got some, I just wanted to get some liner together because this gauntlet has so many small details we really need to line and touch up. Oh, you were lucky, Kronika. That was a lucky repair. Yeah, so I love my muffin road food. Now, the question is, I mean, these little things seem like straps more than they seem like... But I'm really... Maybe they're not. I can't tell. I can't tell what they'd be strapped to. So I think I'm just going to paint them like metal because they're not big enough to paint. Like, they'd be really hard to paint anything else. So when you've got tiny little straps like here on her wrist, yes, Yes, Cathy passed away. She lost it. Yeah. Sorry, Rex. Yeah, I found out yesterday. And as I mentioned yesterday, if you want to contribute, I'm sure that James is going to have a hard time working. At least I would in his place. He's a crazy workaholic man, though, so I don't know. But anyway, making a donation via his, the link is on his Twitch. Might be appreciated. So I'm going to try to keep these little highlights in line with the highlight here coming down the arm. The highlights should all be coming down in a row to show the light glancing down. Yep, and there's the shout out. So if you go to the Wappelius link there and you go to his page, he will have a donate thing, tip jar essentially, and that's through Streamlabs, which does not take a cut of the money. I think Quindy said yesterday, the money goes to the artist. There we go. Now we're getting some shine on that arm. There we go. So we're gonna, the shadow will be on the inside of the arm, and we're gonna have a reflection, reflected light coming off of her armor in here too. So we'll do a shadow right next to that highlight first though, once I've got that highlight firmed up here on the hand. Yeah, so I talked to David last night about making a donation, and I'm gonna donate to my to-do list today. Just in case James is not a Superman and really can't really like work, which I wouldn't be able to. I would not be able to stream or to shoot video. Maybe shooting video, but it would be rough. But that's his livelihood, so. Does anybody know how long they'd been married? Edge of the gauntlet here, I'm actually going to put a bit of a highlight going in. Don't want to get too close, it'll be too easy to get off camera. But here on top of the gauntlet, because the hand is turning upward a bit, and so I'm going to hit that highlight right there. We're going to tone it down a bit. It's a little thick right now, but I'll put a shadow under it. Bring up that highlight a little hotter. that's a bummer, Kerniko. All right, so we've got our highlight kind of traced in. I still need a little bit sharper there. You can see how that bright white highlight really starts to make things look shiny. Now I need to emphasize this shadow coming down the inside of the arm. Yeah, no idea, Zachariah. Yeah, they've been together as long as I've known them, but... they seemed like a long-time couple. Okay, let's get this shadow. Oh. At least early 2000s. Yeah. Yeah, so at least 20, probably 20 years then. Yeah. Yeah, that's just devastating. I can't even imagine. I've been lucky enough not to lose anybody super close to me yet. But when it's a spouse, it's like the only parallel I have had in my life would be losing, you know, a really beloved pet, right? Somebody you've spent the last decade or more with, except worse, right? Because it's your human partner. Yeah, I feel for James. I hope that we can help him make it through if he wants the help. Not all people do. James seemed like, at least, you know, Cathy had asked that people stop asking him about her on his stream. So I get the feeling that James is a more private person. I could be wrong about that. But if so, he might not want a lot of outpouring of sympathy. Yeah. So yeah, let's be sensitive to the person. Still popping in some highlights. I didn't like the highlight that I'd done on the leg there, so I wanted to refine it, make it a little bit better. I'm using kind of going back and forth between liner and highlight here just to sharpen up these plates. When you're trying to paint such small areas, it's very easy to muddy up your highlight and not be able to see everything. And lining really helps you here. Like this sort of model, lining is your savior. It really is, because you need those edges for everything to stand out and look like clear, to see what's going on. So okay, interior of the arm, I'm going to grab some of my brown liner, mix it with my dark gray. Should give me a nice warm neutral. And I'm going to use that to emphasize the shadow here right under that highlight. Oh, I need to remember to drink my tea. I had to rush to get to stream since I was late. I'm not used to having tea. Yeah. Yeah, Kerniko, I can believe that. Yeah, Kiki is pretty adorbs. I don't know what possessed me, but I just felt like I had to do the Kiki voice for y'all yesterday. right, and I feel like I do need to still pop the white along that hip. So I'm gonna get it a little stronger. When you're trying to really convey shininess, like a really shiny surface, putting those hot pops of white in makes a big difference. Yeah, she was a devil up until this month. Like this month, she's finally turning into an adult dog. But I now remember the way puppies are, which I had forgotten. All right, so now we got our gray. So let's put our gray in. So my gray is there. And I've thinned it, as you can see from how much it's fallen off the palette. And here I want to grab this gray. Because it's so thinned, I probably need to build up a couple of layers of it. I also need to be careful and unload my brush a lot before I come in here and try to paint in a shadow. But I want this area to get darker here. I'm going to use that shadow to kind of trim up this highlight a little bit. And that shadow will help to convey the shine a little bit more with contrast. I actually didn't pick it up in the 90s resin. I actually picked it up very recently. I only started using Adorbs within the last year or two, possibly because David is a child of the 90s and so is my best friend Bridget. She is so I think I picked it up from Bridget. But yeah, I have always tended to get along with younger people more than with older people. So yeah, I pick up all the 90s stuff, which is so funny because I'm a totally awesome dude from the 80s. But I tend to pick up the latest slang anyway, because I also watch like esports, right? And so I pick up all the latest slang from esports. A lot of younger person slang. Which is cool. It means I can always talk the talk. Yeah, I would say with me that's also the same Shadow Raven. I mean, the only time it really feels bad is if one of the passings was really rough. Like Leo's was really rough, and so Kiri's made me think about Leo's, but mostly I was just grateful that Kiri's passing was so much better and more peaceful than Leo's. So yeah, I reflect. I tend not to dwell too much. And I can be happy that all my pets have all lived at least 10 solid years and have had very happy lives with me, so. There we go. So we've got that shadow down there, giving us contrast. Now we'll do a reflection. Yeah. I take time to process, but like, I think my life now is much more conducive to processing. Like back when I was in Texas, I really felt like I didn't get any. Like Leo passed during ReaperCon. Like it was Saturday night of ReaperCon. I'd like go back and finish ReaperCon after Leo passed, and it was not a good one. So it was yeah. Yeah, that's true, Zachariah, right? Like, younger folks get into our geek hobbies, right? Oh, yeah. I feel it, Resin. Yeah, 14 is. At least, though, is when it's a nice long life and you know that the dog has been loved and you've taken really good care of them. It really it helps me to think of that. Yeah, but don't dread it. Like, I think just love them more, Redlings. When Kiri was getting older and getting more problems, it's like I got frustrated with her, but I tried to always spend time with her. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, agreed, Butts. Yeah, I didn't really process Leo's passing until I think it was even 2 months later when I went to Florida to visit my uncle. And I had a long drive. I had like 3 hours from Orlando out to where he was in Fort Myers. And that was when I processed it because I finally had time alone without having to take care of everything else in my life where I could just do so, right? Oh, hold on. I missed a mini thing. Oh, I see. You don't like the latest phrases. I think there are some really good recent phrases. I like F in the chat. And a lot of my current phrases are definitely esports type phrases, but yeah. Yes, you're not broken, you've got character. Yes. Yeah, I would have quit too, Kerniko. Yeah, I feel like America has a very unhealthy relationship with grief. You're right, because we just don't give people time. We expect people to be like, okay, it's been 3 days, you're good, not even, right? And it's just not realistic, and it's not good for people. Then we wonder why people burn out, freak out, you know, have breakdowns. Like we're always expected to be go go go, get over it, quote unquote, right? That's so sucky. And it doesn't help that oftentimes part of us doesn't want to process it anyway. We don't want to dwell on it, right? Even though it's healthier for us. But yeah, I think what I've heard about dogs, especially aging, is like 10 years. The first 10 years are great, and every year after is a gift. So just be conscious that you don't know how much time you have left with your old dog. Yeah, and people wonder why there's so many mental health. Yeah, exactly, right, Agent Marvel? Yeah, and the pandemic just made everything worse. In the writing sphere, the coach I listened to, she talks a lot about burnout because with all the emotional, like, crazy during the pandemic, right? People just, it was just too much, and people are still feeling the effects of it. So burnout is like rife and all over the place. And it's just like it's the buildup of all those years of move on, shove it off. So I'm just gonna kind of tighten down on this knee here and start to tackle the leg. The leg is not going to get a lot of it's not going to get any above light, but it's going to get some reflected ground light on the side here. So I'm going to be coming at it kind of from this side. The spikes are picking up light because they stick out. Yeah, leverage. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. We can move on to a happier topic. I know that oftentimes I ask you guys to move on to happier topics, so we'll stop. We'll stop dwelling on the things. Talking it out sometimes helps a little bit, but some people it doesn't help at all. That's why I was like with James, I get the feeling that he's a more private person, so he'll find his way. Hopefully, I hope he will accept help if he needs it. All right, so just kind of going on this plate here, and I'm gonna have to reline the back there. I got a little blurfy there. Often I'll go in just with my white, even though that gives me no transition, but I'll at least sketch it in to see if it looks right, and then I'll go from there. I can always blend my light gray back into it, so you don't have to go up in stages from your medium gray through your light gray. You don't have to do that. Now this plate bulges out a little bit on the calf, so we want to put our highlight probably right in here. Then I'll block that in. So yeah, with this much NMM, often I will put in my highlight, then my shadow, and then I'll do my blending. Yeah, it's been a happy thing. Counseling has worked well for me, Agent Marvel. I haven't needed it for a while, but it was really nice to have. Hoolits. Owls are called hoolits. That is adorable. Oh, nice. I love foxes. That's really cool, Vic. Bridget is looking for somebody to keep a breed quality female from her current litter, and I'm like, no. I just got through the puppy phase. There's just no way. Plus, I want a smooth next. All she has is plushes. I think she has more pup dates. I think there were more pup dates. Let's see here. Pup date. Oh, yes. The sitting. She's training the puppies to sit. Like, if they sit, they get a tiny little meatball. But only if they sit. If they're jumping up, they don't get anything. Sitting puppies get treats, though. Yep. Nom, nom, nom. Yeah. So this helps. I mean, it's a foundation. She's essentially laying a foundation. This one is really patient. Oh, we broke. Everybody else on the other side, she's like, everybody over there is getting food. I'm going to go over there and sit. So funny. So there. I figured this would be a nice cheerful thing. There. Oh, yep. That one is back. Yep. Oh, nom, 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 nom. Oh, they're so cute. Yes. Yes, exactly. I'm waving my hand around. Exactly. And then I waved it down here where I should have. But yes, this is our happy. This is our happy dose. Yeah, so there's little tiny puppies getting fed their little foods. Bridget weans them onto raw. Yeah, they're good. Oh no, somebody's jumping up. They're so funny. Oh, you meant with the gnats. Well, I was doing this too because I was trying to poke my head at my screen instead of my screen. Yeah, they're very cute. They're very cute. Let me see. No, that was pretty much the recent pictures. Yeah, pretty much the recent pictures. Yep. I think we're good. Yep. Yeah. Okay. There we go. We got puppy video for our happy. Which is great. Alrighty. So yeah, so this is an odd one just because there's going to be shadow underneath here, just because there will be. But there also is a highlight down here. So it's really weird because light is going to be reflecting off of her foot and it's going to hit the underside of this kneecap. But it's really not going to hit like this area, right? So we have a reflection here and kind of a shadow here, and then a little bit of reflected light down at the bottom. On a bigger model, you probably would have a tiny bit of reflected light from the kneecap onto this, but on this tiny model, we really have to simplify. Oh yeah, for sure. Like you've got that, and you've just got that. But that's where we start. And with this much metal, you really do have to take it just one plate at a time or one section at a time. Baby foxes are adorable. If foxes weren't stinky, I would totally like be tempted to like get. I would now they won't let you, but before they were allowing the import of the Russian domesticated foxes. I would totally own a domesticated fox. But you need a big enclosure in your backyard for them, and they dig. Oh, that's really nice, Cornico. That you can register with a kitty cat charity. Just in case. In case of sad things happening. So a little bit of a highlight down here. I may have gone a little bright with that, so I can take my light gray and just kind of glaze over the top a little bit of that white and take it down a little bit. And of course, the stream today will be shorter since I started late. Yes, that's what I was talking about, Volnavia. And it worked, and it goes very fast. I wouldn't call myself an expert on that program, Volnavia, but if you want to, read the book, How to Tame a Fox and Build a Dog is the name of the book, and it is written by one of the scientists who worked on the program from the beginning. Yes. I have read that book and own it. One second while I pop that back over there. It's a fascinating read and really key science. Were they the domesticated ones or just owning a fox, Kodiak? Because many states won't permit you to just own a fox if it's a wild fox. Going back to cat protection. Yeah, that's good, Vicky Danger. Yeah. Yeah, I really like foxes. They're cool. Yeah, some animals I'm okay with staying wild. I do not need to own a fox. I tell myself again and again. Puppy is bad enough. Yeah, it does not take very long, Pendrake. They essentially, with that experiment, they proved that domestication took We used to think that it took like thousands of years or even 10,000 years. And now we can see that it didn't even take a century. Like they could have done it in 5 or 6 generations. They could have had dogs that were reasonably domesticated. Phil Robinson. Yeah, with wild foxes for sure. I mean, the Russian program started with foxes that were just a little less afraid of humans and essentially bred for that human tolerance and ended up with domesticated foxes in super fast time. But if you're just keeping a fox that is essentially at point 0 on that map, then you're essentially just keeping a wild animal. And yes, it's going to bite you. But yeah, that research was important just because it showed us how fast domestication progresses or can progress. Although some animals do not have the genes for domestication. Zebras, for example. They look like horses, but they apparently do not have the genes for domestication. People have been trying for centuries to domesticate zebras unsuccessfully. Bye, Turgeon. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up soon, so I can resume trying to have a normal day. Badgers are the worst. Oh, I believe it. So everything that faces up should be a little bit lighter. Even like, I mean, your highlights and shadows. Your shadows should be lighter on upper surfaces. Thanks, Crowley. We'll see you around. So just kind of working on the side there. Going a lot slower down here because, yeah, I think I want that to go darker. Because it's a weird area with a weird angle. And so I essentially have to go very slowly thinking about where light would go. And keeping in mind that it's also a cylinder, right? Because it's a leg. So it's going to have more highlights as we move around the figure. I still haven't had all my tea, so I'm like sitting here needing more caffeine. Now at the bottom of this plate, I do want some reflection. I think I want the reflection more here on the middle of the leg. Kind of block that in. There we go. You people. Yes, they selected the foxes from fur farms. However, if you read the book Thormel, they go into pretty detail. They go into detail about it because they did have a mixture of foxes that definitely did not like humans and foxes that tolerated humans. So partially domesticated, I think, is not necessarily true or not the whole story, because they definitely made an effort once they started the program to breed for tamer foxes with, and they argued with the government that it originally that it would make it easier to harvest the fur. But they did experiments with breeding the foxes that were more sociable to the foxes that were less so. So they were doing that. They were interbreeding. So they weren't necessarily like partially domesticated already. Many of the foxes in that population were not domesticated at all. They were definitely the foxes that were much more antagonistic toward humans. So I don't know. I mean, considering that information that they give me in the book, I can't believe that the farm foxes were all already some like a subpopulation may have been on the road already. If they accidentally bred, foxes that were more sociable together, then those children would have been closer, for example. Now, I have gotten my information on that project entirely from National Geographic and the book written by one of the scientists who started there, was there at the beginning. So I don't know where your information comes from, but I don't feel that I feel confident in stating that there was at least a sizable portion of the population on the fur farm that were not domesticated, would not have been counted as such. And yes, it is always a bad idea to try to live with wild animals. I very much agree with this. That's why the only time I was at all tempted is when when I read the book and they had essentially tried, they needed funding very badly for the fox program, so they were allowing some foxes to go as pets, some of the domesticated ones. I would never keep a wild fox, but if you taunt me with a domesticated fox, I might have a hard time. But yeah, so whether you count the foxes as partially domesticated or not, still pretty groundbreaking research into how fast domestication can happen. Yeah. No, it's full of nope there. My dad knows somebody who rehabs wild animals that got essentially kept as pets. She has a tiger and many other animals that were essentially confiscated. But obviously you can't release a tiger back into the wild over here, and because of its upbringing, it doesn't really know how to hunt or do anything. So I think her tiger is permanently with her, but she's more a zookeeper, animal rehab person than she doesn't keep them as pets. Oh yeah. It's unfortunate that folks point to that study to own it, Thormel. I can see the argument against it. However, I think that people are quibbling perhaps too much. When it comes down to it, that fur farm, how long has it been operating, right? Maybe you could give it 50 years. Maybe? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how long a fur farm would have been actually in operation. But say 50 years. Okay, but they took an original population of wild foxes for that fur farm, one assumes, or they slowly built one up. So even if it was 200 years of existing fur farming and foxes interbreeding, which I doubt you could keep a population going that long, but just for sake of argument, the fact remains that you still got to domestication in very few generations, and it certainly is a much smaller window than the 10,000 years people were originally talking about. So I feel like it is actually more than just interesting. Because even if that set of fur farms started in the 1700s, you're still not talking 10,000 years to domesticate. So I feel like that's a quibble, a little bit of a quibble that loses sight of the bigger awesome in that study. And of course, the other cool awesome in that study is how the foxes started to resemble dogs, right? And how quickly they did, even though they're a totally different species. So it was very interesting to me. I still feel like it makes a couple of awesome points because of those points. Yeah, that's very sad, Kroniko. So yeah, as a wild experiment, I could see that, because you have a closed population, it's not the same. But then again, you'd have to take a wild population and make a closed population out of it in order to run this sort of experiment. Right? So you'd have to capture 200 foxes, figure out which ones had human tolerant levels, and start selecting. It would take you more time. But anyway. But it's interesting. It's interesting. You do raise a good point, though, that it would have been an interbreeding population already, so it wouldn't have been a wild population. So it's not, you can't take the findings at pure face value. You have to factor that in. Well, unfortunately, yeah. There's also there's also zoos, quote unquote. I use the term very loosely, which are essentially just a bunch of animals put on display for money and not necessarily treated very well. All right, so I'm going to just get this little thing done here, and I think we're going to be done for the day. I wanted to go a little bit longer since I was late. And I can't, well, we'll just not bother. We'll just shut down that. 4,500 wild tigers. I can't believe there are that many in Texas. I would be shocked, but maybe I'm wrong. Papa, what are you playing with and chewing and trying to get in trouble with? What are you getting in trouble with, Papa? I hear her out there. I feel like she is totally trying to chew a hole in her bed right now. She's like, it's time, Mom. It's time for our walk. There we go. So I've got at least a start on that and that. It takes a long time. I'm okay, okay, so I guess I'm not a purist here. Because some of the purpose of science, I feel like, is to pursue big ideas, right? So the fox study was fascinating. And even if it, like, for some reason they got totally lucky with that population of foxes, the fact remains that they did it. And I sometimes feel I like science an awful lot myself. And I often, as you know, I pursue scientific verisimilitude and I like learning about it. But sometimes I feel like in the academia world, like, they'll argue things to a tiny little, like, they'll argue it till it's dead. So, okay, I'll give it to you even that the fox, that it was a fluke, right? But the fact is that it still happened. So I don't think you can throw out the research, but you're right. Like, but again, like, how do you do that? Like, you wouldn't have, the thing is, okay, now put in people, right? Add people into the equation, and then we'll end the stream. So the Russian government was never going to allow these scientists to go out and spend a bunch of money, doing a study on wild foxes, and you'd have to collect them, right? You'd have to collect a huge population of wild foxes. You already have a perfectly good fur farm, they say, so essentially when they started that, it wasn't badly designed science. It was actually government persecution and dislike of science in that time. And so they had to hide the research study. And when you have that kind of thing, when you've got politics and people in there, I can't really blame them for having a poorly designed study because they knew what they wanted to do and they had a resource that they could pull upon, right, at the time. That seemed like a good resource. They have all these foxes already in cages. Let's go, So, I think it's impossible to domesticate people, Korniko. I think it's impossible. They start wagging their tails, Bill. They actually seek out human interaction, and they get, like, floppy ears and spotted coats like dogs. Or those did. And, like, as Thormel points out, it could be a fluke. Maybe they just lucked into, like, a population of foxes that actually had a mutated gene that led to domestication. But, yeah, right. And so that's kind of my point, Vic Danger. Like, David narrowly escaped an academic career. And he views it that way. But yeah, so I mean, I guess what my point is sometimes you don't have the ideal world you need to do the visionary study you want to do. I feel like it was that way with the foxes. I feel like they wanted really wanted to do this. They had the resource and they used it. And if they would have had to do their best world study, like their best designed study, it just wouldn't have happened because the Russian government would never have put their stamp on it and they would never have gotten to do it. So you would have zero information. I would rather have some information and have a really cool, kind of project out there. The fact that people use it as justification for owning wild animals, I don't think you can blame the study. The study isn't saying go out and buy a wild animal. The study is saying, hey, after several generations of controlled breeding, right? But humans don't look at that, of course. So, yeah. Twitch is like unhappy with my academia discussion. Random as raccoon. Haha. Yes. Yeah. I am totally not for, like, I'm very sad, actually, because I really love that study. Even with all its flaws, I think it was a very visionary thing to do. And it rewrote the way we thought about the evolution of domestication and the time frame possibly required. So I still think it was worthwhile. But it's a shame that people use it as a justification where, well, if they domesticated foxes, I can keep this tiger. It's like, and believe me, I like double feel it because Shiloh shepherds have been dogged with, the rumor that we've got wolf in us for decades. And we don't. We prove it via DNA, and yet people, disreputable breeder people, go out and buy a German shepherd and breed it to a wolf and try to sell it as a Shiloh, So, yeah. Definitely don't do that, Quindy. No, do not go out and domesticate animals. You are not equipped to do it. For one thing, there are many perfectly wonderful domesticated animals that need homes. Let's just put it that way. But yeah. So we got some progress today. We got the arm coming along here. Yeah, exactly, Carrie. I don't know. I just got a bird feeder, Big Chimpo, so I'm gonna feed the birds. Sorry, gonna feed them. They're having problems with their population anyway because of the bird epidemic that went through during the pandemic, and also cats predation. So I feel okay feeding the songbirds. And yes, I'm getting a bird bath too. You're gonna domesticate a chicken sandwich in a bit? Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, making friends with crows is cool. But you're not trying to bring wild crows home and domesticate them. Yes, feeding the birdies. I'm just waiting. My tree hook should arrive today, actually. And then I can put up my feeder. So it's pretty cool. I won't be able to watch it because we'll be gone for Yosemite at the end of the weekend. So maybe that'll give the birds time with absolutely zero activity in the house for them to get used to it a little. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah. So yeah, I see your point, Thormel. And yeah, everybody don't go out and start domesticating animals. For one thing, you never know. They might not be domesticatable. And for another, there are plenty of awesome domesticated critters that need your friendship and love. Yeah, right, exactly. I almost made that comment when somebody asked about domesticating people. Not about bug lips, but about men in general, community. But actually, mine seems pretty domesticated. But he did it on his own. He domesticated himself. So, pre-domesticated. Oh, yeah. Songbirds are just having a hard time of it, Sagebrush. I'm thinking about getting a little nesting box for my pygmy... I think they're the little tiny birds that I've got are pygmy nuthatches. And apparently you can get them nesting boxes and help them. Because they're a teensy little bird. So teensy, and they're so cute. No, the Crow King has no love for you, Vic. Yeah, his suspicion is holding it up. Yeah. Peanuts in the shell. Ah, all right. There you go, Vic. Kerniko, the crow friend, says peanuts in the shell. You are bone. Yeah, how do you speak crow? More peanuts are your life. Funny. All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out. Sorry that I started so late. We've run quite late now. Kiki is very impatient. She's lying right by the gate saying, Mom. Crow Detective. Yes, Crow Detective. Thanks, everybody. So tomorrow, tomorrow we are back to, we're going to do serious stuff tomorrow, guys. Serious stuff. Because we are breaking this off of its base. And we are going to do some putty work to figure out how she fits on this base and essentially dress up our base to get Sophie ready to go on to her new home. So that's what we be doing. So don't miss it. Don't miss it, folks. Cool. Yep. Okay. So I hope you all have a great day and give Band of You smile. Yes. All right. Your key takeaways from this stream should be: do not domesticate wild animals. There are plenty of awesome domesticated animals that need your friendship already. And 2, NMM is a pain in the butt. And 3, remember maybe to donate or to buy a Cathy Wappel figure for Jim, okay? Okay, guys? All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.